sometimes you have to fail in order to succeed later. Or that's just what I'm going to tell myself to make myself feel better. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for this week, I have some bad news. I don't have a successful project for this week. And I considered, trying to scramble and figure out something else that I could show you all, but this is real life. I totally make mistakes. I wanted to share with you my fails as well as my successes. So this week is not going to be like a full-fledged tutorial. It's going to be more like a fail, but I feel like you like that, so yeah. This week I attempted to make some DIY curtains out of drop cloth. Now I know a lot of farmhouse style and cottage style enthusiasts love to use drop cloths as curtains, and in photos they looked amazing, like incredible, and I was like, I want some of that, but I wanted it to be a little bit more colorful. I started recording this like any other tutorial or project that I show you all. So what I think I'll do is I'll just kind of like show you step by step what I did and kind of commentate in between. Hey guys, so I am about to start dyeing this, but I wanted to show you what I'm actually going to be using. I know that I already said that it's a drop cloth, but this is a bleached drop cloth of the larger size. I will link all of the drop cloths that I use down in the description box, but I use the bigger one. It is from Harbor Freight, and I just cut it down in half, and I hemmed up the edges just like the other sides are hemmed up. So cut it in half, hemmed up both sides, made the two curtain panels, but as I mentioned, I bleached this for a different project that I didn't end up doing. So this drop cloth is bleached. This is the unbleached one. I'm going to just do a sample of the unbleached one. Now before I go ahead and put them in the dye bath, I'm going to go ahead and wash these in hot water, and then I'll start the dyeing process. Don't I sound so full of hope and thinking that it was gonna go well? The reality of the situation is I was kind of terrified of messing this up, which looking back, I really totally did mess this up, but we're not gonna think about that. So I was actually terrified, and if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen my stories about me being nervous to do it. As I said, I went ahead and washed the drop cloth that I had bleached as well as the sample of the unbleached one in the washing machine in hot water. And they recommend to do this so that the item of fabric that you're dyeing is, consistently wet all over, and it'll help the dye disperse easier. And you won't have like random splotches of dye that dye less or dye more than others. You would think that I, researched this to death and I would have, come out successful, but no. The DIY gods are once again against me. Maybe I should take a hint. So after they were washed, I pulled them out, set them aside, and started making my dye bath. What I did is I filled up my washer as full as it would go, just a large load setting, with hot water. And then I poured in 3 bottles of dye into the dye bath. It might seem like a lot of dye, but I had about 6 pounds of fabric, and that's what they recommended. So that's what I did. Now, at this moment is when disaster struck. Our washer is not the most high-tech thing on the face of the planet. It washes clothes, and I am very grateful to have this washer. But this washer has it out for me because I have successfully bleached drop cloths before and done the same exact process, but on this particular occasion, when I did not have enough dye or enough fabric to just try again. So as soon as I put the drop cloths into the dye bath and started swishing them around to get them fully saturated, my washer decides that the pause button that I had pressed to pause it before it starts agitating it, it just decided to ignore that, and it started emptying the dye bath. It started like taking out all of the water that was in the tub. I do not know why it did this. I quickly figure out that I need to unplug it. So I unplug the washing machine from the wall and it stops. And I'm like, okay, it's okay. So I plug it back in, and you would think that it would just do nothing and like just be okay. But no, as soon as I plugged it back in, it went ahead and started draining some more. So I go ahead and rip the plug out of the wall and I'm like, what is going on? So amid my panicking, I suddenly just stop and I'm listening and I still hear the water draining and I'm like, no! And it's unplugged from the wall and I was like, okay, what do I do? It's draining. I don't know what to do. It's like in the dye bath, so I can't like start again. At that very moment, I embraced my inner MacGyver and I thought about the drain hose and I was like, it must be a siphon. So I went ahead and I lifted up the drain hose a little bit out of like where it was draining from just to cut the siphon and it stopped draining. But at this point I had lost about 4 inches of water from the top of the washer and yeah, I was in a pickle. So I sat there for about 5 minutes and I'm like, okay, what do I do? I've added the correct amount of dye. I've added the correct amount of salt. I've added the correct amount of water. I had a lot of fabric in there. These drop cloths are very large and a large amount of fabric. I didn't know what to do. Like if I added more water, which I definitely considered doing, it would dilute the dye bath and I wouldn't have like as potent of a dye. Looking back on that, it would have been probably the best thing to put more water in it, but in the moment, it made sense not to. What I did is I just agitated it by hand and I tried to make sure that all of the drop cloth got evenly covered in the dye bath, which is very hard with really heavy fabric in a washing machine. So I did that. I agitated it 3 separate times and I left it in the dye bath for about 45 minutes. So after that, I plugged the washing machine back in, let it drain, and ran a regular cycle with some laundry detergent. But as I was transferring it to the dryer, I noticed there was some splotches. And I was just hoping that some of it was just more wet than other parts and it was just the fabric that just had the differentiation and it wasn't actually splotchy. But after it came out of the dryer, it was. In real life, it looks way more splotchy than it does on film. I could bleach out the dye or just use a dye remover and start again, but at this point, I don't really want to. I don't know if I'm truly in love with this color. It's really bright in the room and it's a lot of color in the room, so I don't know. I'm sorry this was a fail this week. I hope it entertained you guys anyway. It was more fun to film this story time than to actually go through the process of trying to dye this. I fully intend to try Rit dye again. I don't think it's actually the Rit dye's fault. I think it's my washer's fault and my fault because I did too much fabric at once. If I had just done one curtain at a time and in an individual dye bath, I feel like it would have turned out better. Anyway, I hope you guys all have amazing weekends and I will see you guys in the next video as always. Bye guys!